Visual and sound are on. The station goes on the air.
My name is Count Lavenstein. My internet name anyway, not the name my parents gave to me. And I am about to do a walk round and commentary on a cyberpunk city which I've built in Second Life. It can be found at the Sanctum Erotes sim at 157.25.3698, and it is called Iona 5. The street signs are named after famous authors who wrote about metaverses. The Wachowskis were the writers of The Matrix, which I'm sure everyone will remember very well from the famous 1999 film. These gadgets here are RLV showers. They are used to clean up Second Life avatars after people have been doing naughty things with them. The security scan energy field here works with a little bit of conditional logic. Basically an if statement. If the status of the prim is phantom, which means avatars can walk through it, collision detection will then play the first sound in the prim, which is the security scan sound, and at 1.2 it will play it at maximum volume. Because in the code such things seem to be nicely normalised in Second Life, the volume goes between 0 and 1.0. Then, let's go back here. Here we have a marijuana farm where we're growing some illegal plants because drug use tends to be one of the tropes of the cyberpunk genre, as does biohacking and body modding, hence the building of this biohacker's lab. Unfortunately, this chap in the bench appears to have seen better days. Here we have a load of tools that look like something from a 19th century apothecary, and some pretty cool screens with a lot of pseudocode on them, just to add a bit of Atmos to it. Apologies for all the coughing. It is the beginning of May, and for the 4 weeks around this date, my allergies go through the fucking roof with all the pollen around. And this is a Moloko Plus vending machine from a Clockwork Orange. So the Moloko, Russian for milk, is mixed with Synth, which is Clockwork Orange speak for synthetic mescaline, with Drenchrome, which is short for adrenochrome. Velocet is Latin actually for will fly, which covers the kind of speedy amphetamine things. And there was one more that I'm forgetting. Drenchrome, Synth, Velocet. No, I can't remember what the other one was. A couple of young ladies skipping class there. On a Space Invaders couch and arcade machine, which is in fact actually playable. And just for a bit of nostalgia for me, because I am in fact an audio technologist and audio engineer in real life, and I am in fact at the beginning of getting into this, old enough to remember having to work with these reels of tape, which was a fucking nightmare. You had to spend years collecting the equipment because you were behind a 10 grand paywall to get even a basic setup. Nice food shop here. Wolves ice cream, getting the dietary priorities right. Nice seedy sex shop here. This is in fact actually a filler. Fillers are very good to have in these kind of sims because they don't tend to have scripts in them. They have very low lag overheads, so breaking sims up with these can actually make the performance noticeably better. And here we have the last of the V8 interceptors from Mad Max. Looks like it's taking a bit of a beating actually, this one. The soundscape you can hear here was basically done by just travelling to the local town centre and sitting at the edge of the road with a portable Zoom recording device. In fact, the very one I'm using to record this right now. Get some radioactive waste here, and I believe these are property of Arkham Asylum. And this here, no Cyberpunk sim would be complete without a hacker's den. These dirty servers are really pretty cool. They come from DRD. They do a lot of really cool stuff you can buy on Marketplace. And I believe they still have an in-world store, which is pretty good. The textures in this particular desk here are actually permission to alter them. So I've put in this, it's from the 1992 Granada Rentals advert in the UK. It's from an old BBC test card. So they've nicked the BBC test card, and I've nicked their nicking of the BBC test card. A young lady up here is Natasha Espinosa. She is actually a tailor from Canada, and I put her in there because she looks rather like a real life version of Iona, who is doing this walk around for us. This here is a Commodore PET, which again included for nostalgia. It was the first ever computer I used in the 1970s as a very young kid. My father was part of some kind of syndicate of folk at his work where they owned this machine or got the use of it somehow, and they passed it around each other and took turns each of having it, which was really cool at the time, because back then even basic machines like this were monstrously expensive. You'd have been paying well over £1,000 for that in 1970s money, and that was when £1,000 was a lot of money. You could buy a house for about 10 grand back then. Good house. No. Cyberpunk trope again, big piles of rubbish sitting everywhere to kind of emphasise the dystopian societal breakdown and the general seedy, high-tech and low-life aspect. Nice reel-to-reel computer there. Back in the 70s again, the early 80s, hard disks were absolutely monstrously expensive. I mean, even by the end of the 80s, you were talking about a couple of grand for a few megabytes. So tapes and magnetic discs were the preferred method of storage, and hard disks and SSDs are a paragon of stability compared to them. You just had to have triple copies of everything in discs back then, and you had to keep it all moving. If a sector in one disc buggered up, with 3 discs you could more or less guarantee that not all the sectors in the discs would be the same that buggered up, so you could keep copying them to new discs, and if you kept it moving, you could keep your data reasonably safe. We have managed to keep some tapes and discs for about 20 years without losing what was on them. Lady there is from Disturbed. They do these kind of non-player characters kind of sitting around. So her name is May. She's the kind of admin that looks after this place. This here is a bondage club. All these devices can do all kinds of crazy things. It's always a good idea having these things in your sim somewhere, because a lot of people that come to Second Life come specifically for this kind of shit. So if you get these things set up, you'll get traffic in, and a bottle of Bordeaux claret there for them to drink afterwards. Now, Fear is a prison, is a band, musical project anyway. It's basically a loose collaboration with myself and some friends that I use for the odd political runt. And of course we all want information to be free and not be used against us by the likes of Mark Zuckerberg and that twat that now runs Microsoft. This here's an ATM, again sound triggered by a touch script. And the same with this holophone here.
Welcome to BIM Videophone. Calls are charged at $10 per minute. Please insert your card.
Strangely, with the cyberpunk thing, you tend to go back to the 1980s to make things look futuristic. Nobody in their right mind would pay money to use something like this now, when they're probably carrying something in their pocket that could do the same job a fuck sight better. This area here, the plan is to have a midsummer rave in it. We did this last year, but due to delays getting everyone to be in the same place, doing the right things at the right time, we ended up being delayed till quite well into August. William Gibson is the man. He wrote the first book that started the whole cyberpunk genre, or at least he's credited with starting it, called Neuromancer, and I would urge anyone who's a fan of this kind of stuff to have a read at it. Vinge Drive, disused, now rather decrepit overpass. Werner Vinge also, he wrote a metaverse book called True Names in 1979, and if you were to read it now and you're into Second Life, you would swear that the book came after Second Life. It predicted the goings on so absolutely perfectly.
Freedom is slavery. Conformity is freedom.
This here old communist car, it's a Moskvich 403, and the reason I have this piece of shit in here is because back in the 70s, when my family didn't have all that much money, these communist cars were very cheap, so we had one that my grandfather had passed on to us when he retired and stopped driving. The engine was so loud and bizarre that me and my brothers could hear my father coming home from work before he even drove into the street, because you could hear it backfiring all the way up the road. Smilex, that's from the 1989 Batman film with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson gave a bravura performance as a Joker in it, which was cool to watch. They also did a really cool computer game version of it in the Commodore 64 and the Amiga. Amelia Clark over there, all nicely cybered up. Cyberpunk 2077 and DeLorean, which Ready Player One and Back to the Future seem to have made a staple of the old cyberpunk genre. This building here with the side-scrolling text is the Block 13 building. It is a staple that you find in loads of Second Life cyberpunk sims. And here we've got a hangar for are flying machines. You can actually get in these and take them up for a flight. And they fit nicely through this doorway here. And we have a kerosene tank here, ground power unit, tool bench. These terminals are from Synth on Second Life Marketplace. They do lots of really cool retro computing stuff. This forklift here actually drives quite realistically like a forklift. Unlike cars, the fulcrum is in the front of a forklift and the steering comes from the back. And like a real forklift, if you turn this full steering lock and then floor it, you'll get round maybe once or twice and then it'll tip over, which is exactly what they do in real life if anyone's stupid enough to try it. Over here in this bench we have a Commodore 64, which for me is still one of the coolest computers ever built, arguably up there only with the Amiga. Though I have to give a shout to the ZX Spectrum as well. It's called the Timex in the USA, I believe. It came out in 1982 for 125 quid, which was almost unbelievably cheap for a home computer at the time. And it had 48k of memory in 1982, which was wild beyond the dreams of avarice for most users. This area here we call the Hanoi Hilton. It's a really cool thing to put up as a sim border. Gives you a bit of three-dimensionality. And it's just wide enough so that you can have a few rooms to explore inside and put some stuff in if you so wish. Here we have literally a red light district complete with red lights. Another sim filler border, a rather seedy, I believe it's Veronis that make it. Yep, Veronis. Again, just a cool way of kind of having an outline for your sim that you can actually interact with rather than a flat border. Here we have a sushi bar and burgers with a pretty cool waitress in it. Can't actually remember where I got her. On Marketplace. Seems they don't have an in-world store. Burning cars. Oh, the magic Rubik's Cube as well, that's from Marketplace. Just always put that out somewhere because it looks kind of cool when it finally actually reses properly. Now this is a quirk of Second Life. No serious gamer would contemplate waiting several seconds for textures to bake, but in Second Life you're not going to get jumped by zombies or people with guns unless you go to an RP sim where you deliberately look for that kind of thing so you can get away with a bit more. Stevenson Street. Neil Stevenson is the author of Snow Crash, which again is a seminal metaverse book. In fact, in that book he actually coined the term metaverse, which we've been hearing so much about in the last 12 months, but which now seems to be dying a complete death, leaving Second Life as the undisputed favourite still, even though it's now approaching 20 years old, if it isn't already.
War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Conformity is
Skateboard park, this is pretty cool. You can actually buy a skateboard with a HUD that attaches to the avatar's feet, and you can do all kinds of cool freestyle tricks like ollies, varials, kickflips, no complies, and you can also, with a bit of practice, do these tricks getting a bit of VR off these ramps and land them again, which looks pretty cool.
remember. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Conformity is freedom.
Here, again, this is a cool thing I found in Marketplace. This is a reactor control room, and it is a faithful representation of Control Room 4 at the Chernobyl plant. Now obviously destroyed, and as some of the material in the corium that melted through the reactor and solidified underneath it is plutonium-239, which has a half-life of 24,000 years. It probably won't be safe to visit in our lifetimes. In this panel here, actually, you have the famous AZ5 switch, which contributed greatly to causing the explosion. The engineers thought they could press this switch after overpowering the reactor to get out of having underpowered the reactor, and it turned out that their system had an engineering flaw where it actually increased reactivity before decreasing it, which pushed the reactor over the edge and caused the thermal explosion. People still debate to this day whether it was the engineer's fault or the design flaw's fault. I think you could probably say a bit of both.
Freedom is slavery. Conformity is freedom.
And this here, anyone who's watched Robocop will remember well. This is an Ed 209.
Please put down your weapon. You have 20 seconds to comply.
And they were known in the film for being rather twitchy and killing people even if they did comply with the directive to lower their weapons. This, I believe, is the nastiest toilet in the whole of Second Life. It's certainly the worst one I've seen, although I'm willing to believe there could be
War is peace.
even more terrible ones out there.
Conformity is freedom.
And here we have a smoker's den complete with a bong, which we can trigger a nice sound in it.
Remember, war is peace. Freedom is slavery.
I tend to do a lot of this planking interactive sounds into things because I am actually into sound design in real life.
Remember,
Here we have some Cyberpunk. Here we have some steampunk
conformity is
equipment, old mechanical computers.
Remember, war is peace. Freedom is slavery.
Reanimator, old Lovecraft book. Herbert West, and this poster is played by Jeffrey Combs, who gave an awesome performance in the 1980s Reanimator films. At least the first one was in 1980s, I think the
Remember,
sequels
war
might have
is
been
peace.
later.
Freedom is slavery. Conformity is freedom.
That war is peace thing I'm going to separate out a bit more because it's
Remember,
triggering
war
too
is peace.
frequently and getting really
Freedom is
quite
slavery.
annoying.
Conformity is freedom.
And I get hissing steam in these manhole covers. This here,
Remember,
the police car,
freedom is slavery.
this is full of some really crazy sexual positions, which I'm not going to demonstrate right now because I don't want this video to end up age limited. And we have a police station here, which is actually abandoned, but it does still have a cell that we can use if we need to lock anyone up. The Krabbit police
Move
woman
along,
here.
fuckface.
Now, this young lady here, again, we have sound in it. This time it's triggered at random. So, we have 20 silences in one that actually plays something.
What a day. You look lonely. I can fix that.
That was voiced by the inimitable Lydia Lindemann, who's a voice actress, and based or nicked from the Blade Runner 2049 film. What we got here? Toilet. I've not really had a proper look around this building. Got an upstairs with a cage. Here, well, with all the radiation we've got around the place, barrels of waste and whatnot lying everywhere, we have a nice decontamination chamber. And Quine Close. Quine wrote Ready Player One. Ready Player One is now a pretty cool film. I think it was available on Netflix at one point, but I haven't seen it in a while. It might have to be got by other means now. And this is a town hall where these NPCs tirelessly run the city. And the key performance indicators here are all in the green, which is an absolute fucking joke. And here we have a DeLorean complete with fusion reactor and time machine. I think they may have been a little over optimistic when they imagined in 2015 you'd be able to fit a fusion reactor into a car, or even for that matter build one. And we've got the murder scene here, crime scene. Looking at Johnny Cadaver here, it doesn't appear that he died peacefully in his sleep. Up here we have the food court, which allows you into the upper levels. These are still under construction. One of my friends is building a place for us to have parties up here. This thing here is a cryocane freezer, again available on Marketplace. I'm not actually going to drink this because it has a bizarre effect of getting your avatar absolutely off their tits, and I need to still be able to walk to finish this off. Oh, we've got the flying cars a la Blade Runner. If you so desire, you can right click them and go for a ride around the city in them. They work kind of like the flight management computer on an aeroplane. You set up waypoints and they travel from waypoint to waypoint until they arrive back at the beginning again. So I have them just kind of running around the perimeter of the city. Oh, another little political rant. I don't know if that is readable from here. Advice from William Gibson: whenever you're presented a new technology, you should ask yourself what a criminal, a policeman, or a politician might do with it. And one more thing, we have a teleporter here behind the gate that takes you back to the downstairs. This street we have art galleries, and some of them are still empty at the moment, but we are working on finding artists to populate them, and some of them have put some pretty cool stuff in them. Again, taking a bit of time for texture baking. This one here is the beehive. A lot of cool photos from around it. Oh, one of Iona. That's the photographer there, Tom, in our Clockwork Orange style bowler hat. And in here we have the archives.
Thank you for your cooperation.
This chap here, the parrot, is Captain Flint. I adopted him because his owner was annoyed with him squawking all the time. And was going to delete him. He has been quiet at the moment, but he detects avatars round about him, and the longer you hang around him, the more squawking and shouting he actually does. And these are the archives. You click a disc and it sends a short story to nearby. And if you can be bothered, I'm sure not many people can, to read the entire lot. It gives you basically the backstory of what we've been getting up to, going back to our very first sim that we made in Second Life around about 3 or 4 years ago.
Securities can complete. Thank you for your cooperation.
And that is probably a good place to call it a day. So I hope in the unlikely event that you've sat through this entire presentation, you've enjoyed it. It will serve me well to remember in the future when I'm an old man what I was getting up to in Second Life. So, sayonara.